Very simple. Working with the leadership here in the House and in the Senate. We're going to be in the promise-keeping business.
And the first promise that's going to be keeping?
But the first order of business is to repeal and replace Obamacare. And that was our message today, and it'll be our message on Capitol Hill. And it needs to be done.
For more on that, we're pleased to be joined by our friend Steve Cortes, Trump surrogate, member of Trump's Hispanic Advisory Council. Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan.
Good morning. So, Obamacare repeal, and the question is the timing of the replace, how quickly the replace happens. What's your view, and what do you think the Trump administration's perspective is on the speed of the replace piece of recasting Obamacare?
Right. Well, I think this is priority number one, and I'm so glad that, the Congress, the Republican caucus thought priority number one was trying to strip power from the independent ethics office. And even if that's a good idea, that certainly isn't the first idea. So I'm so glad that the president-elect set them straight. Mike Pence, very valuable with his ties on Capitol Hill. And, I think we were elected largely because of this very issue. As a guy who worked every day in the trenches of this campaign, the fact that those Obamacare premium hikes, massive hikes, were literally being mailed out in October leading up to the election, for me, was just political, sort of manna from heaven. So we were elected to do this. We have to do it. And to answer your question, I think that the replacement does need to be put in with great speed. We have to get it right, of course, but I think it's got to be within weeks, not months, that we have the replacement. Now, that doesn't mean that we immediately that it becomes effective immediately. I think there needs to be a phase in, and I think that's going to be important. When you're talking about people's health, they properly get nervous about that, and so it's understandable that Obamacare. We created this monster. We're going to slay it, but it's going to die a slow death. So over the course of this year, I believe, is when it will phase out and the replacement will come in. And those details, though, are being worked on right now between principally Vice President-elect Pence and Speaker Ryan. And I think the public will know a lot more about that in just days and weeks.
Hey, Steve Cortes, do you know anybody who's benefited from Obamacare? Because I spoke with a woman yesterday, a liberal lady, who her premium went up from $400 to $500. Her deductible is now $6,000. And I said, well, do you like this? And she said, well, yeah, it's because she's just so aloof. She's just so brainwashed. And she can't even use or visit her doctors that she's normally been seeing.
Right. Well, and Amy, that's the crazy part, is that our quality of care hasn't shot up. Now, thank goodness we do have the best medical care in the world because of American innovation, in spite of the obstacles our government continually puts in front of that innovation. But I think that our quality of care hasn't gone up, but you're exactly right. Both the premiums and the deductibles have absolutely skyrocketed for a lot of folks. On top of that, I think it's a job killer. I think it's one of the reasons, for the first time in American history, we reached a really sad milestone. More businesses are closing than opening. First time that we've kept records of that sort. Part of that, I believe, is Obamacare. It's regulation in general, but I think perhaps the most stinging of those regulations is Obamacare and what it's doing to health care in general. So fixing this not only means that it fixes those awful monthly bills, those sticker shock kind of bills that people are going to see, but it also means that we can fix a lot of other problems, particularly reinvigorating the entrepreneurial dynamism of America, which can solve so many problems out there in our society. So this is just critical. It's job one. I'm very glad that both Pence and Trump seem to know that and are going to be aggressive about it. And, I think that if we do a few things, allow for cross-state competition in terms of insurance policies, if we can get some serious tort reform enacted both in the states and at the federal level so that doctors and nurses and staffs don't have to spend so much time worrying about lawsuits and needless care or needless effort that isn't real care for patients. If we do just those two things, I think that alone will lead to a real renaissance of truly affordable care, not so-called affordable care.
Now, Steve, I'm going to do some quick cable news prep for you for later on. How gender and race obsessed that they are. So they're inevitably they're going to ask you, Steve Cortes, member of Trump's Hispanic Advisory Council, how concerned are you that none of Trump's cabinet selections are Hispanic?
Right. No, listen, Dan, it's a Fair question. And I'm incredibly proud that we massively outperformed expectations among Latinos in this election. It was, constantly we were polling beforehand, according to most mainstream media polls, in the teens. In fact, we outperformed Mitt Romney, and we ended up getting 29% of the vote. Now, I'm not happy with that number. I don't want to hold a parade for getting less than a third, but it is important that relative to expectations, we did great among Latinos. And I think it's because they put aside the notion that Trump is racist or that he hates Mexicans somehow. And I think what they voted on primarily is economic growth, because this slow growth that we've been enduring is worst of all for those at the middle and lower ends of the economic ladder, and that just by definition is a lot of people of color. But to get to your question, I'm very confident that there will be senior people of Latin background, because it is important. While I don't believe in quotas, I don't like identity politics, it is important that our government look like America. And I'm very glad that so far there have been some very significant African American, significant women appointees. We haven't had an Hispanic yet. I would say part of that, though, just to be very plain about it, is there weren't a lot of really high-level Hispanic politicians who backed Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So there's not a deep bench, to take a look there. Now, I'm confident over time there will be. I hope that I might be part of that, in fact.
There you go.
But we need to build that bench, and so it wasn't there. And I do think it's important. Look, talent is clearly the first prerequisite that he's looking for. We have to get growth and security back for America. The way to do that is to get talented people in these positions, regardless of their skin color, regardless of their gender. I'm confident that some Hispanics do have the talent to take on serious roles, but we haven't seen one yet. You're right, and it's clearly something that the mainstream media is going to try to beat us up about, but I don't think it's going to work.
He is the talented Steve Cortes, Trump Hispanic Advisory Council member, and you can catch Steve Cortes' long-form interview we did this week. It'll be posted at upstream-ideas.com against the current with Steve Cortes. Steve, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You've made this